start. First of all, I will read out our webcasting notice. Please note that this meeting may be filmed for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's website. At the start of the meeting, the Chair will confirm if all or part of the meeting is being filmed. You should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. Members of the public seated in the public gallery will not ordinarily be filmed by the automated camera system. However, please be aware that by moving forward of the pillar, or in the unlikely event of a technical malfunction or other unforeseen circumstances, your image may be captured. Therefore, by entering the meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting or training purposes. Members of the public who participate in the meeting will be able to speak at an on-camera or off-camera microphone according to their preference. Please speak to a member of staff if you have any queries or concerns. And as we don't have any members of the public here, doesn't really apply. Anyway, we will move on to the first item on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Hacker, online. I can't hear you, Councillor Hacker. Can you hear me? You're muted. Are you? No, you're not. Okay.
Right, can you hear me now? Excellent. Sorry about that. There was something that was stopping me from my meeting. It's just that I work for an organisation, Nature Nurture, that was involved in the climate festival. So I just was advised just to mention it, but as it's not a decision report, I shouldn't need to excuse myself.
Please remember to mute yourself and not somebody else. You have presentation powers, right? So therefore that means you can stop presentations, start presentations, you can mute people, you can delete people. So just concentrate on yourself. All right, okay. Let's move on then to item
Chair.
6.
I'd like to ask a supplementary on that, if that's okay.
On what?
On
Councillor
question
Singh?
number 1.
Sorry?
On the question number 1.
On question number 1, no, we've moved past that item. It's been noted by the committee, and the questioner will be sent the requisite answer. Thank you. Let's move on to item 6, Reading Festival update from Festival Republic. Are we going to see it on the
Chair, yeah, just to say
Super.
that Festival Republic just loading that up now, and then we'll take you through it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, can I start? Chair.
Yep, please, far away.
Okay, if I could first of all just introduce the, I think we've got a panel here. Noel Painting. I am one of the festival silvers. Silver is a funny old term, but it basically mirrors the emergency services control system, or control and command system. To my right is Jenny, who is going to talk about sustainability. Beyond her is Charlotte, who is the licensing manager, and Claire on the far side is the event manager. And we'll take it in turns depending on the questions we get as to who answers what. What I'd like to do as an introduction, and I've been to these meetings a few times, is to say thank you to members and particularly to officers with whom we deal with on a very regular basis for the support in producing what we all who work on the festival think is the best United Kingdom music festival. So thank you. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so just as a sort of recollection really of what happened in terms of timings particularly. So we run the festival from in terms of the public being on site from Wednesday through to Monday, which is the way we always, well, we've done it for several years. We have early bird tickets can arrive, and there's a limited number of early bird tickets that are sold. We always advertise 6 o'clock, but whatever we advertise, people still turn up on Tuesday night. And one of the things we're going to look at next year is just trying to avoid too many people turning up on Tuesday night. But if they do, just, you know, giving them a reasonable experience. But the better we make their experience, the earlier they turn up, they'll be turning up on Monday. General admission campsite opens on a Thursday. We have a late night arena opening, and then the main entertainment happens in the arena on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday we shut the campsites at lunchtime. And they were substantially clear at that point. Next, please. And just a reminder for anybody who missed, and I don't know who managed to attend the festival here, clearly some of the officers were there, but in a working capacity. But it was great. It was really good lineup. You know, people had a good time, and you know, clearly the headliners were just part of the show. There were hundreds, I'm going to say, of acts over the course of the 3 days. Next slide, please. So summary, we would think the 2023 festival was a success. There was certainly really good media coverage of the artists. One of the things we talked about last year when I was here, or we sort of hinted at what we were going to do, was things called air hubs. And we put those all around the campsites. And basically, in addition to the campsite managers' offices, these were very visible, distributed throughout the campsite. I think there were 17 of them distributed through the campsite, and with happy smiling faces, and people basically, you know, somewhere where people go and talk to people about problems, about things they were enjoying, things they weren't enjoying, and basically they operated as a sort of assistance, information, and response was what the AIR stood for. The other big thing was the campsite fire ban, which we thought it would be good, but actually it was better than good. There were really good positives coming out of that. Certainly those living downwind of the festival, admittedly it's only for 3 days, but probably would have noticed that it was slightly easier to breathe. And it actually helped us with, I'm going to say discipline, but behaviour in the campsite was much improved. We did various other things to improve that, but behaviour in the campsite was certainly much better. We weren't constantly looking for people who had little fires going into big fires and then catching a crowd. That sort of didn't happen for the reason we banned the campfires, and for another reason I'll come on to. The offsite changes, clearly we had some challenges, and hopefully the school will be ready to open in the next academic year, but clearly we had a building site there. We had a building site where the old Rivermead was being demolished. So all of that presented challenges in terms of the usual logistics of transport and getting people in and out of the festival. We had the Ask Angela campaign, which again was really successful, and we had some testing as to knowledge of Ask Angela, and that was excellent throughout, from security to bar staff to staff throughout the festival being aware of the Ask Angela campaign. The other thing I mentioned, there were two, well I didn't say two, but I said there were other things that made the campsites better in terms of behaviour and experience of the festival goers in the campsite. The other thing was we moved the silent discos, which have historically taken place both inside the arena, but actually the two big ones were outside the arena. And we took a relatively late decision to move everything into the arena. And what that meant was that we didn't have big tops in the campsites attracting, let's say, 10,000 people trying to get in. Actually, everything was contained in the arena. So there were some challenges with that, but actually what that did is move, if effectively we didn't get the large groups moving around the campsite in the same way, trying to get into one arena, then trying to get into another. And we didn't, this whole movement around the campsite was much, much better because of that. We had Challenge 25 across all the bars and sponsor activations. And we'll come on to this more later, but we had an eco campsite in 2022, but it's massively expanded in 2023 and was really, really successful. And I think it's certainly one of the things we'll be looking to build on in 2024. Looking forward, there will be some changes, but we're going to basically continue on with the success that we had this year. So the air hubs will be looking at new partnerships and maybe expanding the air hubs, running them slightly differently, maybe relocating a couple of them to make them more prominent. The eco campsites we're looking to promote more, and we'll be working with local schools more in Brighter Futures. Sorry, that slide took a long time, but that's the information heavy slide, if you like. Key areas of focus for this year were the campsites, safeguarding generally, and sustainability. Next slide. So campsites, next slide. Sorry. So these are pictures of the air hubs. Steve Hasty is the guy in the middle, looking very happy with his new role in air hub. He's worked with us for years in various ways, looking at welfare. But we had various organisations working for us in the air hubs, different community organisations, other organisations we work with elsewhere, and you can see they're really bright. There's a bit of a saggy scaffold pole on the bottom right one, but generally really brightly painted, LED signs, really publicised, and I think they went down really well. Lots of people, going to people to talk to them there, basically getting information, getting a response, and getting assistance. Thanks. So bit of information here about the fires. There were sort of some queries about the fires in terms of the number attended and the number Royal Berkshire. Royal Berkshire generally don't come on site because we haven't had need for them, but you can see Event Fire Solutions. We're looking for clarity as to what the 17 were, because there weren't really any calls for fires, but I'm not quite sure where they were. But you can see basically the numbers have gone right down. So the need to have people in blue lights rushing around the campsites, putting out fires, disappeared basically completely. Next slide, please. And in terms of security, we had what we call tiger teams, and increased security or increased visibility. So basically we put everybody in high vis. What we had previously was sort of color codings, depending on what company you work for, But when we looked on CCTV, and actually when we walked around the campsite, people weren't always visible. So what we did this year was make everybody bright. And we upped the numbers and we put in everybody in bright high vis, and it just made people much more visible. We had an SIA visit for those, the Security Industry Association. They came on site and they did a check and everybody passed, which was great. Really good news. And that covers not the stewards, but it covers all the people who are in security positions. Earlier intervention, we didn't actually have more evictions. So if you compare the eviction numbers, we were only on 119 compared with 219. That signifies two things. One is we had less bad behaviour, but actually we were more proactive. So I think people saw that we were proactive, and then their reaction to that was to actually behave better. Along with those other things I talked about, moving the silent arena, which stopped the big numbers moving around, and also not having the fires in the campsite. Yeah, we redesigned some of the campsite, and that will be ongoing going into next year. We also had a security audit in the campsite. Next slide, please. Sorry, if anybody else wants to say anything, please do. Sorry, it's all right. It's changed on yours, but not. Okay. I could just keep talking, but. Okay, if I can just get up the slide and I can talk to the slide here. Thanks. Okay, it's right and left. Sorry, I'm going to read this, which might make a. So safeguarding. Yeah, so we had various organisations working in safeguarding. Oh, gone. Yeah, thank you. There were various things going around. Oh, okay, these are some of the organisations we had working with us on safeguarding. Next slide again, please. Thanks. We had a help map. We've always had help maps, but actually there were just more things on the help map in terms of indicating what was there. We've provided these slides, so if anybody wants to look at these, because clearly there's a lot to read on some of them, so if anybody wants to look at them at their leisure, they can. Next slide, please. And they're looking out for each other. You can see these are just some of the signs we put up. You know, check in with your mates, eat, sleep, and rehydrate. Just signs that, you know, we put up on the screens to remind people to not just be excited, but actually to be fairly sensible as well. Not saying everybody was always sensible, but actually I think the messages go a long way to making sure that, you know, we do safeguard. And it's not just about people looking after it themselves, it's actually about looking out for other people who may be vulnerable or maybe not looking after themselves for all sorts of different reasons. So the look out for each other message was really well received. And as you can see here, did you see the look out for each other campaign? 88% yes. Obviously, we want to get 100%, but we had 19,000 people who completed the survey, and nearly 90% were aware of the campaign, which was great. Next, please. Bars and alcohol, you know, successful again. 36,000 challenges, 605 refusals, and 130 IDs confiscated. Less than before, but maybe people are just realizing they can't come along with a fake ID and get served. Next, please. Hazmat, you can see here, this is an organization we bring on site to test. We've got working relationship between ourselves, Thames Valley Police, and the security teams. Lots of proactive work. One of the things we looked at particularly was, I'm going to say, auditing people as they arrived at the festival, probably more than we will before. That doesn't mean we didn't do it, but we just had a series of, I'm going to call it triage, a bit like going into a hospital where you find out how serious things are and you get put into different queues. And we were triaging people who we thought might have something that they shouldn't have more than we have previously, and being more thorough with the testing. And as you can see, that resulted in us getting a street value of drugs tested of £277,000 worth. Yeah, generally the sort of, if you like, the proactive work in finding drugs was great from the moment really before people came through the gates. Next slide, please. And then we come on sustainability, and I'll pass you to Jenny.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Next slide, please. So we're just going to run through the kind of headlines because there's a lot of information on these slides, but you can have a look at these in your own time. So the main headlines from emissions of the festival were that we've reduced down by 31% reduction in our emissions, which was based on our 2019 baseline year. So you can see we have got a reduction there in the top right-hand corner. You can see the table. That actually really boils down to 0.5 litres of fuel used per person per day. There's actually a benchmark set by Julie's Bicycle of the same amount, so we're on target there. Next slide, please. There were lots of schemes in place to reduce waste and plastic. I've listed them all here, but just to go over the main ones. Firstly, we had disposable vapes were banned this year. We also had a partnership with Liquid Death, which you can see a little picture of in the corner. That's water. And so we use that instead of plastic bottles. And we use soft drink units as well. So we were able to reduce plastic bottles in that way as well. And like in previous years, we also had deposits on returns of cups and bottles. Next slide, please. This was a scheme we're really pleased with for this year. We had an eco campsite. Of course, we had it last year as well, but this year compared to last year, we actually ended up having 8,200 festival goers sign up for our campsites. Last year we had 1,000, so really increased. We had 2 campsites, we had yoga, and you know, it was a really great success. If you go on to the next slide, we'll be able to see the results on the Monday. As you can see, you know, the campsites in terms of rubbish and tents are notably different to you know, what we might otherwise expect. So we were really pleased with the results from those 2 eco campsites. Next slide. Again, quite a lot of data on here. You might see Councillor Dennis in the photo. We're really pleased with the results from our waste streams. So we produced 2.5 kilograms of waste per person per day, which is really great. We managed to reduce tent waste as well. So we had 28 tons of tent waste, which is an improvement. And is only 14% of the total waste. We also recycled an awful lot more this year, 77% recycling. So we were really pleased with that. And none of our waste went to landfill. Next slide, please. Just a couple of points here. We worked again with Music Declares Emergency, who we worked with last year, to get across the message of no Reading on a dead planet. We also work with Climate Live. They are a youth climate justice activists, and they had a presentation on the alternative stage. In previous years, they've brought a big pink bus, but that was over in Leeds this year, but hopefully we'll have it next year. Next slide. I think this is my last one. So just a couple of things. So every year we donate £1 of the car parking fee to Trees for Cities. Last year's donations resulted in 22 mature trees in Reading, which we're really pleased with. This year we'll be doing the same, and we've also this year began a new sort of scheme, I suppose, really, which was to collect glass at the Audi, so outside of the festival site, to actually put a staffed glass bin, which ended up collecting 938 glass bottles, just so that when people are decanting before they come into the festival, it keeps Reading a little bit cleaner for everybody. There are other points on the slides, but please feel free to read through those as you wish. I think that's that's me.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. I did manage to attend 3 of the days of the festival, and I witnessed, you know, the amount of work that has gone into the sustainability side, because I was with Vicky Chapman, who was the sustainability lead. She hosted me for the 3 days. And I can contest that, yes, the eco sites in particular are quite impressive, and the expansion was well received. And speaking to some of the festival goers, they were very happy with that arrangement. So maybe it's the future. Anyway, let me see. Are we getting any responses from the officers at all on this, James?
Hi, Chair. No responses as such. I mean, I think again, just to go back to Festival Republic's point at the start, there's a huge amount of work that goes into each and every event each year. It's a true sort of collaborative approach with the festival and the council and lots of other partners. Each year is, we aim to improve every year. There'll be areas that we'll pick on to try and focus on and take forward. And I think every year that has been a successful approach. And go back to Noel's point earlier, that I think that then puts Reading on the map even more, because it's such a successful festival, and what it delivers is amazing, and it's a great thing for Reading. We obviously go through the licensing process as part of the outcomes of the event, and we have a debrief which goes into the detail around each of our partners' views on how the festival operates. So that includes all the blue light services, but also all of those that are involved on site, including things like festival, medical, etc. Again, very helpful to help us shape the following year and to make sure that all the plans that are in place are fit for purpose. And it's one of those things where you always get to test the plans, and it's very helpful then to say go and take that next step in towards improvement. So the next kind of main planning phase for the 2024 event will be sort of kicking off in December, and officers will be very much involved in kind of moving that forward as we move towards another successful implementation in August 2024. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, James. It's open for councillors. Councillor Cresswell.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. It all looks very good in terms of the proportions of recycling and the success of the eco campsite. It's really encouraging. Keep it up. Thanks.
Councillor Emberson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation, really helpful and, all good stuff. I think we spoke last year about how young a festival it is, and I actually ended up going, even though I am too old, because I did my GCSEs ages ago, because it is very young, we're talking really young people at Reading. So I went on the Sunday, and you don't get a sense of the campsite from a day ticket, so it was helpful to see that. And obviously I went as a normal human being, not as a councillor. But the point I wanted to pick up on was the triage stuff, because that was noticeable as an attendee, and I thought that was really positive. My only concern was with the dogs, just in terms of the rationale and how that's being done. And of course, this is my 10-minute experience in the queue, but from what I saw, it was young lads that were being sniffed by the dogs, not me, because I'm too old, and I'm a girl. And on occasion, black young men. And I'm not accusing you of anything, because I was there for 10 minutes, and you guys know what you're doing, and you were doing it with the police, and I think it's really positive. I just think I'd like to hear a bit more about the rationale and how that actually worked in practice. The only other point I wanted to make was, I don't know if you have any stats on the Ask for Angela stuff. You might not have them to hand tonight, but it's helpful to know that. And I think the Air Hub stuff sounds like it really did work, but I'm just hearing that from you. You didn't give any stats, and I know you do that with the licensing team more so. And some of it is not publicly disclosable because of the nature of it. You don't want to tell drug dealers how to get in the festival. But I do think those are important points, because the environmental stuff is very important, but for me the safety points are more important. And I think the look out for each other stuff was really good, because the last time I'd gone, it was take your tent home, and I thought that was a valuable campaign. But I think they're still going to leave their tents. You know, I think that's a really difficult one to sort yourselves, and we get a lot of slack for that, and you do. But I don't think you're ever going to stop every single tent. I really don't. That's my honest opinion, and we can do as much as we can. And I'm sure our licensing team put pressure on you to do that, but I do feel the look after each other campaign just cuts through compared to some of the environmental stuff. So that's just kind of my perspective, Chair, as a lay attendee. Billie Eilish was all right. I'd give her a 6 out of 10. I'd rather have seen the Killers, Chair, but it was, yeah, good time.
Thank you, Councillor Emerson. Do you want to? We'll take a few questions and then pass. What do you want to?
Should we just pick up the questions as they come through?
Okay, yeah. If you prefer, yeah.
I think it's probably easier and it's more.
Okay.
Just in terms of the Ask for Angela, I think we have.
Here. So
Yeah.
Ask for Angela figures at the moment. I suppose I can hear myself all right. We can definitely get back to you on the overall picture, but what we can tell you is we have a safeguarding team and a safeguarding coordinator, which the team was up this year, which we discussed via with the SAG. We don't have any serious cases of Ask for Angela that came through via that safeguarding team, so we can confirm that, which is obviously a good sign. However, across the board, we've got a new login system that we use in our event control centre, and it means across the board we can search for things like Ask for Angela, and what we're aiming to do is go through all of that and make sure that we've got a log, because of course we can use it for training as well if we see that certain bars, because obviously bars are one of our safe spaces, there's more logged there. We can look at those sort of things. We've got figures across the board of how many people attended our Salvation Army tent, for example, teas and coffees. There's so many people involved in this safeguarding system. And obviously we do share them with the SAG, but we're more than happy to, obviously time willing. But the dogs scenario, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean.
Shall I? Okay. Yeah, in terms of the dogs, we do have, firstly, I would say that, you know, if we are unjustifiably and disproportionately targeting, you know, young black men, I would be, you know, I'd be as upset as you. Obviously, you've noticed it. I think the only thing I could say, and it's not really a defence, and I think it's something we should look at in terms of briefings. But the only thing I would say is we employ people who are behavioural detection people, looking at the way people are acting as they're coming through the queue from a distance, and rather than thinking, oh, it's a young black man, he's going to have drugs, there will be some behavioural detection. Now, I'm not saying we're perfect at that, and I think it's something we can certainly review. The fact you've mentioned it means we should review it. But equally, yeah, my defence would be that we've got people looking at the way people are acting as they come through. Now, you could get into a discussion as why they're acting like that. It's because they're continuously targeted. But without going too far down that rabbit hole, I think we'll take on board what you've said, and we'll look at the way we brief people. And just make sure that we're not disproportionately beyond, you know, what might come out of behavioural detection, target specific groups. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Challenger.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much for the presentation, but also for the answer on those questions. And mine are on a similar line, but with a slight sort of tweak. Obviously great to hear about the air hubs and the success, but also the numbers going to other, you know, safeguarding facilities that you have there. Did you see a positive reduction in people accessing other safeguarding facilities, talking to paramedics and stuff like that because of the air hubs initiative? Obviously not looking for exact figures, but just more that sort of sense there. In terms of the eviction and the warning aspect and that security, obviously we saw a drop in the figures, but I know that last year was 2022 was a particularly tough year in terms of security. What rough percentage was your attendance overall pretty similar this year compared to previous years? So that one. And then the final question, obviously we've just touched on drugs and around that, but the number of tests have doubled. You've been more proactive, which is great. What is that like compared to the rest of your Festival Republic estate? You know, would you say that Reading has a particularly druggy culture compared to some of your other festivals? And what are the next steps to make sure that, obviously it's great that, you know, we're seeing more drugs being intercepted, but that also probably means there are more drugs still going in and going through to it. So yeah, just wondering what the plan is for looking at that. Thanks.
Figures do you have to hand?
Yeah, we can all sort of, because obviously cutting it short because the figures are so vast.
They are really
we know
vast.
definitely across the board they've gone down with the likes of, say, medical and our
Yeah.
main welfare. So this year we had extra welfare, we had campsite welfare. So our main welfare was considerably lower. So yes, it does affect across the board.
Yeah, it does, and we can see a reduction in that across the board, which is really positive. And I think having air hubs out and about in the campsites and people being able to call on help almost instantly because they were never more than 200 meters away from one of these hubs, I think made such a difference. And anyone who needed any serious help was then walked or escorted to one of the other agencies, so they could then be signposted to the correct one, as opposed to just, you know, stumbling upon a welfare attempt when actually they maybe needed to speak to the Samaritans, for example. So yes, we have seen a reduction, and I can work with James and put together a bit of an update following this meeting. In terms of the percentage of attendance, by the time the event came around, we were pretty much on par with what we'd had previously. I think initially we were a bit, are we going to hit numbers? But slightly
less attendees.
but not to warrant that drop, if that makes sense. It's a disproportionate drop in terms of attendance. But yeah, in terms of attendance, we were pretty much there. We pretty much hit the figures. And then in terms of drugs, we are going through that process at the moment with, as Charlotte mentioned, the event control logging system. So we're sort of in a with everything, with specs, with, you know, the whole, every show we're doing a cross show comparison on every aspect, and the drug thing is one of them. And I don't want to tell you the wrong information, but we will come back on that because I think it is an interesting point. But I will say anecdotally, I think Reading is less druggy than some of our other events.
And just so, because I want to make sure we're not sort of glazing over figures, we just got them up. So say hospitals, for example, they were down by sort of the ones, nearly 2%. So our hospital transfers, so that obviously affects in that triaging system, keeping people in house and treating where possible. Even total patients seen, last year it was 2,554 and this year it was 1,898. So it's quite considerable. We've got them for welfare, but we can have them across.
Just in terms of the festival, sorry, I'm just going to shout. Just in terms of the festival versus other festivals, I mean, the genre of music largely dictates the audience. So Download, you know, has a completely different audience. Leeds is very similar to Reading because obviously it's the same acts. But what I did notice were that we almost need to create a family camping area, which we've never had before. There were people staying on site camping with small children, which we've never had before. So I wouldn't say it's a constant, but it is. Reading and Leeds probably always will be a rite of passage for GCSE and A-level students. And that's the majority of the audience, but it doesn't mean we don't have, you know, people in their 60s who come along or people who come along with small children. So each festival varies basically depending on the genre of music. Did you want to?
I think also, which is an interesting point, and for those of you who were there on the 3 different days, I think the Saturday, you could, you know, with the day ticket holders that come through, the Saturday was very obviously a lot older than the Sunday, because everybody who wants to see Billie Eilish is, you know, quite young. So,
Very young.
but similarly to 1975, complete mix. So it's interesting that you see the change per day. So although it is once, you know, we don't yet know who's headlining 24, so we can't, you know, pass that on yet. But I think sometimes that can dictate what comes through as well. So yeah, it's an interesting theme to track anyway.
Thank you. I have Councillor Yeo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And my comments are slightly different sort of note. It's on the fires, and it's really to say thank you, because as a long-term resident of Caversham, but also in more recent years as somebody who lived in one of the flats by the river, the smoke every year would, as you know, I mean, years ago you couldn't walk along Caversham Road without being able to, you'd be able to see it as soon as the festival was into the sort of first night or so. That it was noticeable, and in fact it was really noticeable, and it's just, and I hope it carries on, frankly. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, we completely agree. And like Noel said at the start, I think we thought it would be successful, but it was better than. It was amazing, and it made such a difference. And I think to talk to that, we do have some air quality monitoring data. We did monitor the air quality this year because we've done it in conjunction with Reading Borough Council in the past. So we were hoping to have that data to present tonight, but we don't yet have it in its final form. But we will share that once we get it through from Brighton University.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have next on the list Councillor O'Connell.
Thank you. Mine's really just a comment because I think any questions have already been asked. I wanted to congratulate you on the way the figures are going. I've seen you before over the years. I've seen those figures changing, and I'm really quite impressed at the direction it's going in and the speed that it's going in that direction. I think other people should look to you perhaps as a model. It shows that where there's a will to improve, then it actually can be done. You're reducing the climate footprint, and that's what, you know, you're showing that entertainment can still be had and be responsible. So I want to just thank you for that. Also, just to report that from up in Tilehurst, over in the west across the river, I didn't receive a single complaint this year as a councillor about the festival, not one. The phone did not go. If anything, I think I picked up slight murmurs sort of on social media of disappointment, because you seem to have got the noise levels sort of, you know, really under control, or you're directing the speakers away from Tilehurst, and people who would normally sit out in their back gardens grumbling about the blooming festival but listening in just didn't get that this year.
Thanks, Jenny. The issue of noise is it's an interesting one, because, as you say, sometimes people say I'm disappointed it wasn't louder because I like the Killers, and it's usually somebody like the Killers they want to listen to. We do a lot of work with our sound engineers and the modelling of the sound. It is so weather dependent, but sound systems are so good now that we can, you know, change the frequency, change the direction. With, you know, we've got 2 rings of delays plus the main PA, obviously. That's for the main stages. And we can sort of, you know, switch off one of the delays or change the frequency coming out of one of the delays. They're not perfect, and we are heavily weather dependent as to where the wind's blowing and who gets the sound and how we can turn it down. But, you know, almost year by year, the sophistication of the systems is such that we can control where the noise goes. We have to bear in mind people have paid a substantial amount of money to listen to music, so we can't turn it down too much. But I think, you know, we have a license, which I think, you know, works for both parties really, and we try not to breach it.
Thank you. Councillor Tarrar.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I appreciate this is very good, very nice festival. And even the outside Reading, the people appreciate, very popular. But however, I have some different comments in the area, West Reading, particularly Oxford area businesses. They were very upset during that period. They were like locked out, you know, because of some closures. Even their normal businesses gone down. They had a loss of businesses. Because those people in the festival, the attendees, they could not go to that side because of blockage or any closure or some. And even the local resident, they gone all to there and they have spent money or enjoyed there. But however, these businesses have, I mean, the loss, and they were upset. Thank you.
Clearly, we don't set out for anybody to lose business as a result of our activities at the festival. As members are probably aware, we've done some economic impact assessments for the festival, and generally the town of Reading benefits, and I'm going to sort of round things up now, but around about 20 million a year from the festival. So overall, there's clearly a benefit. I think in the past we've had various access routes. One of them was out to Tesco's, the nearby Tesco's, but they weren't very cooperative. So one of the reasons we don't go out that way is because they weren't helping us at all while they were taking about 4 million quid from our punters. And what we've done as well, obviously, because we want to make money, we've got more trading on site now. So we've got a co-op supermarket. Actually, most of our events, we have a co-op supermarket. I'm disappointed, obviously, that people are losing business. Some people gain, some people don't. There are licenses given to people to sell things down Caversham Road on Richfield Avenue, but clearly, some people just think, well, I'm not going to go to Reading because the traffic's going to be terrible. There's too many punters. I'm not going to go shopping in that street. And I do realise, particularly Oxford Road, as an example, probably does. I'm not saying it is Oxford Road, but Oxford Road might be an area that maybe has some loss of business. It's just that the way the roads are configured, the way the railway line is in the way of everything, it's sort of inevitable that some areas are going to benefit and some aren't. But all I'd stress is that overall, we're probably adding about 20 million a year to the Reading economy, or at least that's what the economic impact studies that we've carried out in the past suggest we'll be contributing. Thanks.
Thank you. I have up next Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank you and congratulate as well. Personally, I feel the Reading Festival is a great asset for Reading. It's great for the community, great for the local businesses, and it puts Reading on the global map as well. So thank you for that. My question is regarding the pre-event testing you have, like 2 or 3 days before, like festival starts on Friday, but the testing, I believe you have 2 or 3 days before. So one of the complaints or concerns residents raised, like they love the festival, they love to hear the roars and people enjoying themselves, but having the testing also late night, it goes up to 12 p.m., 1 p.m. when you're testing these things, and on Wednesdays and Thursday. So if you can do something about that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, we have to. Obviously, we have to test the sound systems, which is on Thursday, and we've got time, very time constrained, and sound level. Do you want to do it? Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted.
As long as if you know the information. We don't sound check any sound systems on the Wednesday at all. There's no loud amplified noise on the Wednesday. On Thursday, we do noise propagation tests, but they have to be finished as per the license by 9 p.m. So nothing goes on late on the Wednesday. On the Thursday. And then on Friday, we do have some sound checks in the morning prior to the event starting, but they don't start until 9:30. So there's nothing, and then music, we don't have any loud amplified music beyond 11:30 in the evening. So on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'd be interested to know where this, if that's.
There was, sorry.
Oh, the Rogue Trader.
Yeah, basically, sorry, we probably need 2 microphones next time. Sorry. Yeah, basically we've got a license, and the license says when we can test music and when we can play live music. I think there was I'm going to say Rogue Trader who decided to employ a DJ in one position, which, and all I can say is they won't be coming back. They didn't operate for the last couple of nights either. I'm not saying they were the ones causing the problem, but I know that without divulging too much, there was somebody who won't be coming back.
I have Councillor Rowland on the Teams chat.
Chair, actually, yes, fine, thank you. But I did notice that Councillor Hacker kept raising her hand before me. And as lead member, if you wanted to go to her and then I'll come back, actually, at the end.
Okay, yep, that sounds sensible. Yep, Councillor Hacker, good to see you.
Thank you,
I hope
Chair.
you're feeling better.
I'm alive. That's something I'm grateful for right now. So I have a couple of points to make. The first one being backing up what my fellow councillor and Battle Board Councillor Terrell said, that we have had concerns raised by the Oxford Road traders about the lack of wealth being shared along the Oxford Road. And it's ironic that whilst we had the old Cow Lane bridges, people used to go under them, walk the Oxford Road, use the supermarkets, use the off licenses and the food premises. since we've had the new bridges where there is now safe access to the Oxford Road with pedestrian and cycle paths, that access is no longer encouraged. And so while it's great to hear that other parts of Reading are benefiting from the festival, and I think the festival is a wonderful addition, it's a real shame that those traders on the Oxford Road who historically have benefited are no longer doing so. And I'd be really really disappointed if it was simply just because of Tesco unwilling to support the festival. We've got a very vibrant local high street on the Oxford Road, and I'd like to see some efforts being made in future years to maybe suggest that people might want to visit there for food outlets and other bits and bobs. But I don't need another reply for that because obviously you've already mentioned that. So my question was around the Riverside this year. So I had a very different perspective of the festival. I had a friend who's inherited a Riverside plot. So on the Saturday, we went down there with the family, had a barbecue, and just sat back, listened to the music and watched the Riverside. And it was very interesting to see how the traffic on the river is managed. So we saw the Environment Agency, we saw Thames Valley Police, we saw security. We also saw a lot of drones, which was very interesting. They kept looking at, well, it felt like they were looking at us. I'm sure we were being very boring, being all very middle-aged. But I'd be interested to know how things went this year on the river, because I do know in previous years there have been problems with unlicensed water taxis, there's been problems with drug dealing from the river and on boats. So I'd just be, just a few words on how that went this year, seeing as I actually got to see it in action.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been handed over on this one because myself and Robert Smalley kindly helped us implement this the following year. So this year it was extremely successful because I think it was carried across from last year into this year, which means sort of throughout the year there's been a lot of proactive work as well as. So as we approached the festival, I think everyone was in the know, especially the illegal boats and illegal taxis and things that we've experienced in the past, which of course some unsafe operations on the river were deterred from sort of attending the festival with us, really. So to my knowledge, it was very successful in the part of it being quite quiet. So there wasn't anything to report and nothing that I would like to bring to your attention now, just other than a big thank you, really, if I get the opportunity, to the EA, Thames Valley Police and everybody, and we hope to continue it. Yes, sorry, and just as Claire reminded me, we did have an extra police boat this year, which means as the police sort of deter somebody from one end of the river, it means they can put the smaller boat down the other end, and we sort of got a better observation of both ends of the river. But yeah, very successful.
Thank you. We can go back, as there's nobody else to speak. We can go back to Councillor Rowland to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just sorry, I'm suffering from a bit of a throat and a sneeze, so do forgive me. I just wanted to thank you all for your presentation this evening, and really what that represents in a culmination of a lot of hard work. I realize that, you know, from the day after the festival, you're back out wrapping up and planning the next year. And as things go, this was one where there were no major challenging stories afterwards or anything like that. Nothing really unfortunate that caused everybody a level of upsetness, I suppose. The tent accumulation, as you noted, seemed to be down. The eco campsites were up. That's great. I can't wait to see that expanded next year, and any kind of rewards you can give any goer that wants to go and join the eco campsite. You know, get them front row seats, because it's the way of the future. I take on board what Councillor Emberson said earlier, and I do agree. We'll probably never get rid of tents, but beating them back, and you know, suddenly when that's not hip to leave your tent behind, we won't see any more tents. So we live and dream on that. But you know, the security issues. I'm also glad that Councillor Emberson raised that issue. Obviously, we have situations around violence of women and girls, and all of that work with the Ask Angela campaign is really, really critical too. So that seemed to have really flowed along a lot better this year, and again, is a very, very important aspect of the festival. Is creating a small city and having it disappear in a few days and having it run safely and smoothly. I suppose if I had any kind of question, I would just like to kind of find out about the situation around vaping and the association with any kind of smokeless tobacco campaigns or anything like that? Where all you said, obviously, I sit here as a smoker. I've not even switched to vapes, and I really do. I need to do that or quit. But obviously, the last thing we want young people to do is to begin vaping. And when we've got packaging that's geared to young people to get them hooked in and all that, it's just not a good story. So I wanted to know what you all kind of felt about that, and where you are targeting next year in terms of further pushback around vapes. Finally, I just wanted to know, there were a lot of good things in the report, obviously, and as I said, it was generally a very well received festival this year. But surely there's always things that you're going to be looking to do to make improvements. Things that you probably didn't see go as well. I understand that maybe the numbers were slightly less than they had been before. Surely as a business, that's something that you'll probably be looking at. So just some questions around that. What was that about? And what kind of changes or thought processes do you all have in the future? Because of all the wonderful slides and everything, we didn't put challenges and hopes, dreams, aspirations for next year. So thank you for an otherwise very job well done.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland.
Thanks for the question. Just dealing with the easy one, which is what we're going to do. I mean, I think just lots of things went well, but we want to do them better. Would be there are some changes we're looking at, but nothing confirmed yet. So, but in terms of safeguarding, well-being, behaviour in the campsite, making sure the right people get in and the wrong people don't. That's the sort of thing we want to improve on. So nothing radical at the moment is proposed in terms of changes. Oh, go on.
I did just want to say as well, we work with Brighter Futures, which are via sort of Royal Berkshire and Safeguarding. We're looking to tap into schools a lot more next year and speak with the students and things up and coming GCSEs. So this year we had a document which was called sort of 7 things to tell your younger person in your life if you're attending Reading Festival, look out for welfare, all of those things. But we want to have a bit more like involvement in the school assemblies and whatever it may be. But that's something we're looking to do next year.
And on that question from a sustainability perspective, similarly to what Noel said, we were pleased with the results. We want to continue and do better on that. Things like the eco campsites, as you've all mentioned, we're really proud of and we want to expand. So the only other thing that we're looking at that's maybe not been mentioned is those that scheme we practiced with Audi with the glass bottles. We want to see if we can expand in other locations and, try and help make sure that Reading is kept clean outside of the festival as well. So that's something we're keen on.
Okay, just to pick up 2 things really quickly or relatively quickly. I think we didn't really answer the Oxford Road thing adequately. The Oxford Road question. I think in terms of Oxford Road, we don't actively discourage anybody from going to Oxford Road, but we don't want to access just because of the space and actually because of the speed of traffic along the road by Tesco's. It's quite dangerous. So the only safe access is underneath the bridge and then straight through to Oxford Road. We certainly don't discourage anybody from going that way. But equally, that they can find it on a map. But I don't know if it's something we want to positively suggest. But obviously Oxford Road traders are free to promote themselves and link to Reading Festival via various social media apps, which we have no control over. So just to pick up the other thing about vapes, yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would say is that we, in the same way we serve alcohol, people want cigarettes, they don't get them from us, they're going to go off site and get them. There is probably more control over vaping and cigarettes in terms of its sale at the festival site, or I'm going to say as much rather than more than there is in the rest of Reading. I don't want to be claiming something unnecessarily. So whilst we're not going to encourage people to vape or encourage people to buy cigarettes, it's not necessarily in our business to stop people. And if they don't buy them from us or from our retail outlets, they're going to buy them off site. So, but we're not actively promoting not smoking, but equally, any more than the rest of the country, we're not promoting it.
Thank you. I see James has indicated he might want to say something.
Yeah, Chair, I just wanted to add to this. So, Director of Public Health has been in contact with Festival Republic about smoking and vaping. And one of the offers that Festival Republic has made is about communicating through their main stage screens and other screens on site, public health messages around that. And so I think there's an opportunity there to work with colleagues in public health in advance of the 2024 event to get the messaging right and make take advantage of the huge amount of real estate in terms of screens and messaging and the quality of the messaging that goes out both on the screens but on the apps as well. You know, to kind of push out some of those positive public health messages. And I think I know colleagues in public health are going to work with Festival Republic on that. So it's something that we'll support and hopefully implement for the 24 event. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, James. Yeah, well, thanks very much for the presentation. I just want to add just a little sort of short plug, really, for the eco campsites and for Fest Buddies who run these sites. It's a very interesting concept, the way that they get people who want to use the site to sign up to pledges, and it seems to work quite well, and I think that's commendable. I think Fest Buddies have done a good job. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Just on behalf of Melvin, who most of you will know or maybe have heard of, and the team, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you tonight.
You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. Okay, so we move on to the next item of business. We have Mr. Sheen, Sam, to present the Winter Service Plan 23-24.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm Sam Sheen, the Highways and Traffic Services Manager. The highways maintenance falls under my remit, one of the many things, and includes winter maintenance. So this report before you tonight is an annual report that I bring to committee, and it provides an update of how we manage the 2022-23 winter season, which is last winter, the review that we've carried out to produce this year's 23-24 winter service plan. Generally, the 22-23 season was, we would call, relatively mild, interspersed with some colder spells, and we had one brief snow event. There were numerous occasions where the temperature reached a trigger point. The trigger point is when it goes below 1 degree, as predicted at some time during the evening to go down below freezing, and that is when we would grit. There were 51 primary runs and 5 secondaries. Secondaries are usually when we've got prolonged river, but again, they weren't severe enough to activate the snow plan. I do recall the last year, the first time we gritted was the 4th of December, which is quite late in the season. So 51 is an average year, but it was quite condensed into the latter part. So we had quite a lot of gritting going on last year from December onwards. The winter service plan did prove robust, and we had no issues on our primary and secondary road network. The review we carried out has found some changes. We've now got an additional gridman, which we put in on Christchurch Footbridge, and this is because following the review, we looked to prioritise cyclists, pedestrians, and also because the construction makeup was lending itself to causing some issues. So we will have an additional gridman on Christchurch Footbridge as we look to a longer-term solution. The stock, the 900 tonnes, will remain in place through the season. There is no issues with any delivery, and the amount and the storage of it has been no issues. So we'll continue with that. Our spread rates, we're now into the 5th season of using the Appendix H Code of Practice spread rate regime, which we've introduced, and it seems to work appropriately. So we're going to remain with that. Our primary and secondary routes, they're exactly the same as they've been, they're unchanged. We do speak with the Reading buses to make sure there's any bus routes that we need to cover, but the routes remain the same. However, we are aware, we are conscious that the active travel cycle lane that's on Shinfield Road provides a lowered cycle route adjacent to the carriageway. So we've agreed with our contractor to grit those adjacent cycle routes as part of the gritting run. Now, ordinarily they would go one direction down the road, and they would have the device throwing the grit over to the right over both lanes as they do a single pass. We've asked them to reverse that, to throw it to the left-hand side so that the cycle route can be covered. It does mean they will turn around and come back, so that we've got an increase in the amount of length that we grit in, but this is to ensure that we cover that cycle route this winter. And also we know that when the Bath Road Active Travel Plan comes online probably next winter, it will be included in a similar fashion. One of the exciting things we're doing, the local enterprise partnership, the Thames Valley LEP, are funding over £500,000 towards a sensor trial in the whole of Berkshire, and Reading's part of that. And what this will do is it'll put about 14 or 15 sensors in Reading around the borough, and these would be devices attached to like a street lighting unit that will take numerous readings per second of the temperature of the road surface. Now, currently, we have obviously some old data around heat maps and temperature maps of Berkshire, and also our weather stations are not located in Reading. We do have a small station down Oxford Road by the Battle Library, but it's not used for the forecasting. It doesn't provide enough information. The sensor trial will enable us to have better understanding of what our localized temperatures are, and it'll help better decision making going forward. So this winter's a trial, and the benefits should come in for next winter. The trial is also using the LoRaWAN system. It's a Wi-Fi system that was introduced by Smart Cities project some years ago, where we've got a Wi-Fi network, a low bandwidth Wi-Fi network around the whole of Berkshire, and it's implemented. The LEP are funding upgrades on that network, and the idea is that all the data we collect will go through the LoRaWAN. It'll prove that it works, the concept works, and then it'll be rolled out. It'll be a free service for anybody to use. For example, our colleagues over in the health services, it'll be a really useful tool for them to use with any sensors they put into homes, etc. So it's an exciting bit of innovation that's going to go on. But ultimately, what we need to get is we need to be gritting our roads when we only need to grit them. We gritted 51 times last year, and I would suggest that 3/4 of them were necessary. The other quarter were probably not that necessary, because the next day we look at the data and we didn't reach that threshold. The data we better. The other bit of innovation is that there will be a device going onto our gritting lorries. We've got 3 routes, 3 lorries that go around the borough. It'll go onto one lorry for 3 weeks and then move on to the next. And that will pick up actual temperatures as they're driving along, because it's been proven in Scandinavian countries and elsewhere that a single road will have different temperatures at any given time. So there will be cold spots in some areas that need gritting and other spots not. So ultimately, we're going to get to a situation where we reduce the amount of grits we need to do because we've got better data, and we'll even further be able to in the future only grit when it's required. For example, we double grit over a bridge because it's they tend to get cold over the river. That we do automatically, but eventually the programs will run in the cabs that will grit as they drive along in sections of road and then stop gritting and then start again later on, ultimately reducing the amount of grit we use, the amount of fuel that's used, and saving carbon, and also valuable funding for the council. So there's a bit of tech innovation that's going to happen this winter, and we're looking for the benefits from next winter onwards, and I'm hoping to be able to report some positive information this time next year. So the winter service plan is attached as Appendix 1, and I'll ask the committee to approve the recommendations set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I have Councillor Barnett Ward.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sam, for your updates. Always look forward to the winter service plan, and I'm sure you always look forward to me talking about paragraph 7.5. So I will talk about paragraph 7.5 very briefly. Our ambition is to not have that paragraph and to be able to grit footways, cycleways as needed. I appreciate that within the current funding envelope we can't do that, and that it would need some significant changes to how we do grit. But I just note that it is there as an ambition. But I'm really pleased to see the creative thinking that you've done within the funding envelope that you have. I was so excited, I think Monday morning when I cycled over Christchurch Bridge and saw that grit bin. It was brilliant. Highlight of my week. And so there is stuff in here. There's good stuff about Shinfield Road. So I do appreciate the efforts that you make to try and cover some of those important active travel routes. And I shall cheer the day that paragraph goes from the winter service plan. Thank you.
I have Councillor Hacker next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also a fan of the winter service plan, as you all know, but I've got a slightly different question, because obviously we have to take into account what's going to be happening with climate change and how the climate and I suppose the localised climate of Reading will be different. So we're already hearing that we're seeing fewer snow events. We're probably going to see that as a trend going forwards. So looking into the future in the next 5-10 years, will the winter service plan include contingencies for heavier rainfall, for wetter winters, and therefore the potential of more often seeing flooding events, especially in the areas that are currently labelled as like a 1 in 100 flooding area? So behind my house where I live on the Oxford Road, in a 1 in 100 flood event, you'd expect to see water across Portman Road, and I know Lower Caversham also floods in those very rare occasions, but these things might be more regular. So is that something that's being looked into?
You want to take those two?
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Barnwell, thank you very much for your request. Yes, it is an ambition that remains for the future. There's some huge challenges, and it would be really nice if we could grit at 3 o'clock every single day and go home. As you know, that sometimes we're gritting at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it is an issue. But I certainly understand your ambition. The climate change, yes, climate change is an effect on us. There'll be different effect in the winter. We will still have colder spells, and there will be for us to deal with those. So the winter service plan deals around the effects of the cold weather. The flooding thing, that's a separate matter that's not dealt with in the winter service plan, but we have it in our flood plans, our surface water management plan, the preliminary flood risk assessments, etc. And we have an ongoing program, probably starting in 2007. We had a serious event of rainfall in Reading, culminating in the 2010 Flood and Water Management Act, and there's a lot of good work that's been done between us, Thames Water, the Environment Agency, to reduce the flooding risk in Reading continually. We're not there yet. Things are changing. There's still a lot of challenges for us to work through, but we still have some schemes. And in fact, we have one down Portman Road, by the way, that's integrated to reduce the flooding around Stone Street, which we haven't had as flood for a while, but we certainly still have a scheme coming forward there. So yes, flooding is vital, but it's separate to the winter maintenance contract. But we also have the heat in the summer. That's something we're also working towards, of how we deal with the heat, how we can protect our roads, and how we can reduce the damage. Last season we were talking about the drought and the effects we have in Reading because of the clay, the heave, the damage it caused to so many utility apparatus that at one stage I think every major junction in Reading had an exploded water main that caused lots of trouble. So yes, climate change is a huge issue for us going forward, and the industry are aware of it, and we raise it regularly with our suppliers on materials, how they can make more robust materials, how they can survive, what we can do during the summer months, etc. So yes, it's a valid point, but it's just not part of the winter maintenance, but it's still part of the overall highway maintenance.
Thank you, Sam. Councillor Goss.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 points I want to make on the report before us. I'm pleased to say that the first has been already addressed in terms of 7.5 in it, in terms of footways and particularly cycleways not being gritted. Because my question was going to be why not, but we've heard that there are plans to grit the Christchurch Bridge, which I welcome, and other cycleways over the course of the year under review. So I welcome that. The second point I wanted to make in terms of the report before us is in terms of the priority streets and roads in the borough, as outlined in the report. As things stand, Kidmore End Road is a secondary priority for gritting, for salting, I beg your pardon, over the winter. Given the amount of additional traffic that will be travelling along Kidmore End Road now, that there is a housing development in the former golf course route, surely on the basis of what is included in the report in terms of HGVs and levels of traffic, it should be moved towards a primary salting road, so as to address the amount of traffic that will be travelling along it in the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Both very pertinent questions. The cycleway issue, there's numerous issues. As I alluded to earlier, you don't grit at the same time every night. It depends on rainfall, cloud clearance, drop in temperatures, etc. At the moment, we go out with 3 different trucks, and a computer will activate the gritting at the right level to do it. When you go to remote cycleways, it becomes a different operation. It becomes an operation that is manually delivered, which you'll have a quad bike, for example, towing a bucket of material. It doesn't carry as much as the gritting vehicle. A gritting vehicle can grit the entire route on its own, and we have 3 of them going out. So you would have trucks with material following operatives all around the borough, gritting them. So you need to be careful about what we can do and also the timing of it. So when you have operatives working through the night, they can't work the next day. But you must remember that the Highways Act calls for us to do what is reasonably practicable, not to do everything at any cost. So I think you need to manage your highest risk. The highest risk are the classified road network. That's the highest volumes of traffic. It's the highest number of people on them. That is where our highest risk is. Remote cycleways, footpaths, although it's an ambition, as Councillor Bonnet has said, they are not a high priority. And the council needs to be really careful about asking for something which is really difficult to do, but also opens up liability for the council. For example, we go out at 1 o'clock in the morning to grit, and then it rains at 5 o'clock, and then you have a frost at 7 with sunrise. You have to re-grit it. And I think you just need to be careful of what is actually achievable and what the Act says and what other councils do. It's not do everything at any cost to make those cyclists. And the number of cyclists are rising. You're absolutely right. But if you look at the volumes, the priority is on the primary routes. We're encouraging people to use public transport, get on the buses, be safe and drive appropriately. I know it's an ambition, but we're not in that position at this point in time to promise that we're going to grit every single cycle route, because there are practical problems, and the Act calls for something that's reasonably practicable. And I have to draw you back to that. We can't say it's going to be about money only, but it's about actually being able to achieve what's been requested. The active travel plans on Shimfield Road alludes, the way it's set up allows us to grit them because they've got a drop crossing, a drop curve, a very low curve. It allows the material to go on them. The other point you must remember that when you grit by hand, the spread rates are not as good as done in a big machine. But be that as may, you need, because it's rock salt, you need a vehicle to crush it, and then it then dissolves in the water. On a bicycle, that's only a few of them using a footpath. It's really difficult for that bicycle to crush the stone. So you get into a situation that you may have isolated lumps of salt. So it's really a difficult question and it's a difficult answer. And I don't think we shy away from it, but it's not something we're in the position at this point in time. But it's something we are working towards. Okay, so that's on the gritting. Kidmore Road, your comments are noted. We do have a criteria around volumes and around whether it's a classified road and whether it's a bus route. So some of those conversations will happen next year, and we'll reevaluate that. I can't promise at this point that we'll change it. Development Works has trucks that will go while they do build it. After that, it goes back to residential. So that you've got to be careful about the volumes that are happening while development's happening, as opposed to when you need to do it in the long run in the future.
Thank you, Sam. Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, sorry. I'd like to thank Sam for this annual report. I know actually a good amount of work goes into this, and it really is about managing a rather a rather impactful service. It's a very energy intensive activity. And carbon emissions are all part of that. Obviously, as we're working with the climate emergency, we need to look at how we can actually control this for the betterment of the environment. And I know several councillors have brought that up prior. And that's really gratefully accepted, because we do need to continue to look at those initiatives wherein actually this very intense activity can be monitored and managed. And I would like to actually thank also Sam, who is always looking out for innovative ways, whether we're out doing something in the summer, as you were mentioning, or out doing something in the winter. And the whole situation with the Berkshire-wide, the road sensor temperature sensors that we'll be getting here locally, that we'll be gaining that baseline information this year, but ultimately next year we'll be really able to control and limit really spot on where we need to be gritting or sanding. And that's a really good innovation that over time it's not only going to reduce our impact on the environment, but also lead to efficiency savings. So I really would like to, excuse me, thank you for that. Just also quickly, I would just like to mention, thank you, Sam, also for going to that level of depth in explaining cycle lanes and the challenges that we have around that. Obviously an ambition, but we are a council, like all local councils this year, that are not going to be looking to enhance our budget and increase our budget. We need to work smarter with what we've got. And so I think this is a really, really good, safe plan that manages that. And really with the road sensor tool that we have in the next year or so, something that we can look to make even more efficiency savings on the future. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, Sam, all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. I have Councillor Singh next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sam, for the report and all the hard work your team does round the clock, 365 days a year. My question or suggestion is around options proposed. Is can the drains risk assist as well? As you know, it rains, which often does, and it's going to be very dark as well, winter times, and temperature drops below zero. It causes if there's a clogged drain, it will cause icing around the clogged drains, if they can be risk assessed as well, because that adds to the hazardous conditions you have during the winter time, and especially for elderlies and people with disabilities crossing the roads, that could cause an issue. So yeah, and I believe as a local authority, we do have the responsibility for the duty under Section 39 of 1988 Road Safety Act to take steps to both reduce and prevent any accidents. So is that can be considered for the clogged drains and risk assessing them during the winter plan?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's a very valid point. Obviously, there's next week at the subcommittee, Thames Water coming in, so we are working with Thames Water, trying to make sure that they are maintaining their inventory, their assets, because our gullies, which we look after, and that small connection, are ours, and we need Thames Water systems running at their best, at their design capacity. The drains, you're absolutely right. We're putting quite a lot of effort at the moment into finding repairs and repairing them. We're doing some work, a lot of work this winter with our drainage crews to address the list of ones that we're aware of. So yes, if there are any, please do send them to myself or the team, the highways team, and we'll add them to the list. They will all get investigated and they all get camera surveys. But we are looking forward to meeting with Thames Water next week at SEP committee. They've already indicated that they are happy to reintroduce the very good relationship we used to have with them that has failed, because we need them to address some localized issues which is holding up our gullies. The water is not discharging into them. But I did have a small caveat on that. You must remember that the Thames Water are obligated to maintain their surface water sewers that can cope with a 1 in 30-year rainfall event. We know that climate change, we're getting more than that often, which means that the sewers will surcharge once you get any event that's over 1 in 30. And that's assuming all their kit is running at 100% capacity, which we know they're not. There are tree root infestations, there's displacement of pipes because of older stock. We know there are issues, but they're only obligated to do 1 in 30. So what we got to make sure is that ours are running correctly as well, so that at least we have for normal rainfall we can deal with. There are going to be events, we've had a lot of them recently, very intense rainfall events, etc., which have caused localized issues around that. But again, we know it's a problem. If Thames Water have a problem, we know that they do go out and grit those problem areas where there's a water leak, for example, and they do provide us with lists of those, and we tell them when we know of them. But as I say, next week we're going to have a discussion here at committee with Thames Water, and I will be able to. I'm confident we'll be able to report that we're going to reintroduce our regular meetings with them, and those localized issues we can deal with and get them unclogged. But if any member has, or member of the public has a concern about a gully, please do get it through to our team, and we'll investigate it and add it to our list.
Thank you, Sam. Anybody else? No? Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you, Sam. Does the committee agree the recommendations? Unanimous. Thank you very much. We can move on to the next item, item 8. This item, award of contract for rough sleeping accommodation programme.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper discusses the funding that's been secured via the rough sleeping accommodation programme from the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities to deliver 50 units of move-on homes at the Nova project and 57 Caversham Road site, which is also known as the pods. That will be for a further 12 months. This provision is already in place, and the current contract is held by St Mungo's, but this is coming to an end in March 2024. So the paper is asking the committee to note the award of funding, and also is seeking authority to award and enter into new contract arrangements from April next year until March 2025. There's currently an open procurement exercise that's underway, and the evaluation of bids is expected to be completed by the end of November. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ellie Emberson, Councillor.
You could call me Ellie. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a really important report, albeit it's quite straightforward. I don't think anyone's going to oppose it. I just wanted to say thanks to the officers on both of these projects. They're both successful. They're still relatively new. Feels like yesterday I did all the pictures at the colourful pods, but we have had people living there, and I'm really pleased to say we've actually had 5 residents who have been part of the pod project move on, and that's earlier than anticipated, because members may recall the kind of rough idea is that they would be there for about 2 years. And I know the Nova project has also been successful with supporting women who have had real difficulties. So fully support the report, and also it's just very good that we keep securing funding, and that I really do think that's thanks to our officers and our track record of using the money well and really making a difference to people in Reading. So just wanted to note that, because it is a difficult context that they're working in, but this is a positive report, and I hope other members will support it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Emerson. Anybody else would like to speak to this report? Okay, we'll move straight to the recommendations. The committee are happy to agree the recommendations? Okay, all right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, Selina.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item, this report recommends the establishment of a dynamic purchasing system under the light touch regime to deliver emergency accommodation for families and vulnerable people placed by the Council's Housing Needs Department. The proposed arrangement will replace existing processes and formalise arrangements between the Council and providers in line with the Council's legal requirements in the procurement of its services. The proposed process will allow the council to establish a pool of providers who are able to provide accommodation as demand dictates. And it will secure that all providers have met minimum standards relating to accommodation, aiming to achieve consistency in the quality of the accommodation and management that's provided, and will help the council to achieve improved value for money. It's proposed that the dynamic purchasing system is established for an initial period of 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emberson.
Thank you, Chair. I think on this one, I will make more of a political point, because whilst it is an update about emergency accommodation, there is a reality that this is tracked this evening, and that's because we're seeing numbers that we've never seen come through the door. You know, we're looking at a threefold on homelessness compared, if you look month to month compared to last year. And that's not an issue unique to Reading, that's a national issue. And in Reading, you know, we benefit from a great voluntary sector, and I like to think a great council that does a lot of work and has the political willpower to help those that need it. And in the press, we see the Tories who say they were going to end rough sleeping, I don't see how they are, talk about tents. You know, tents are not a lifestyle choice, they're a reality. And Councillor Goss has disappeared. Sorry, Councillor Singh, you're on your own. I don't know. I don't know if you will speak to the situation in homelessness, because it's just so sad. Like, it just breaks my heart, really. And I know it probably breaks yours too. But if I had someone in my party doing dog whistle politics about tents, I would quit the party, because it's just disgusting. Rant over. Yeah, thank you so much to the officers. And I think, you know, it's really important that we make sure we procure as much accommodation as we can because of the numbers we are seeing. And that is the reality. And I know officers will do their best to secure really high quality emergency accommodation, as they do already, but they're just having to do it on a much larger scale because of the situation we're in, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say very briefly, I think this is a very good idea, very well presented and well argued for, clearly meeting, hopefully it will meet the need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Creswell. I have Councillor Hacker on the line.
Thanks, Chair. I really just wanted to say that it's great that the Labour Council in Reading are doing what they can to support the people who are homeless in Reading. You see it in social media, on the Gossip Girl sites throughout Reading, people desperate for accommodation simply because they cannot afford it. And even though I was poorly in my sick bed yesterday in the hospital, I took the time to have a look at what the King's Speech had brought to us, and it was just tinkering around the edges. It was faffing about. There was nothing in there that could any way realistically help the problem. We're seeing headlines where councils across the country are facing financial difficulties. And as Councillor Emberson said, Suella Braverman is going on about tents. When I go camping, that is a lifestyle choice. My kids don't agree with it, but that's just tough on them. But when you're so desperate that you're living in a flimsy canvas tent, when you hear the rain coming through, the damp coming from underneath, you can tell I've been camping a lot. That's not a lifestyle choice, that's desperation. And we see the wonderful voluntary sector organisations and charities across Reading who are doing anything they can to prevent people being out in the cold. And unfortunately, that does mean tents. So I commend the reports that come here today around what we're doing to prevent homelessness, but we really do need to see more from government, because quite frankly, what they've done so far is not working. People are unable to afford accommodation, rents are out of control, and when you can afford somewhere, you're too scared to moan about the mould. I see they're going to try and do something about no fault evictions, but in reality, what is actually going to achieve? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hacker. Councillor Eden.
Thank you, Chair. I won't repeat what Councillor Emberson has said, but I do know that back in 2011-2013, when I was the Cabinet Member for Housing and Neighbourhoods, our ambition was to eliminate rough sleeping. And over the last decade, this government has made that impossible for any town or city to achieve. And every person who is sleeping rough on our streets, that is an indictment of this government. It's an indictment of the society that we're in. I do want to say to council officers, if you could pass back, because I know a lot of them have rightly gone home for a rest, that we really do appreciate everything you're doing, because every person you help out of rough sleeping and also other forms of homelessness, that has changed the world for that person. And, you know, it really strikes me, the Desmond Tutu story, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, about picking bodies out of the river and helping people. And it does make a difference to those people. But Desmond Tutu also went on to say we should look to find out who is throwing them in. Who is throwing them in? And another way is possible. The last Labour government cut rough sleeping by 75%. And I note that obviously one of the Conservative councillors has left the room. Councillor Singh, I appreciate you don't feel you can defend the government on this one. Hold on in there, all of us who want to see this different, because another way is possible. And if we believe and if we really pull together on this side in the Labour Party, we believe that change is coming, and that can only come through an election, and it cannot come soon enough for the people who we are trying to serve.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eden. I just want to make a little ditto note in relation to the high amount of evictions that our officers are having to deal with in the private rented sector. You know, there's just not enough affordable rented properties in the town, and it's a massive shame. But I can understand the sort of pressure the housing team are under with the homeless situation. Anyway, we'll move on to the next item. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Greens for their comments tonight, because we're approaching budget season. I am nervous that the Greens will bring another budget amendment about homelessness, because it really annoys me every year, because it's just playing politics, and I just don't think this is the issue to play politics with. So I'm really grateful for your support genuinely this evening on this, rather than political score pointing, because Councillor Eden's right, it can be done. During COVID, we really did see a decrease in rough sleepiness because government threw money at us to sort it out. And the money that got through us we used, and it got people off the streets. So we know it can be done. There are some situations that are more complicated. That's why we've got the pods. That's why we've got Nova Project. I'm not saying it's easy to get everyone inside, because it's not just a matter of giving someone a home always, but that does go a long way. So I just wanted to make that point, Chair, and I can see Councillor Goss has rejoined us, and he's welcome to defend the the comments about tents that have been made this week, and he's also welcome to not. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any other contributions? Councillor Goss.
Well, I have been challenged, and I shall not defend the comments or the phrasing used by the Home Secretary. But having worked with a homeless charity in one of the most deprived constituencies in the UK, a number of people do choose to live on the streets. Now, it is the responsibility of both national government and we in local government to provide opportunities and options so that that is not the case. So I do, of course, welcome what is before us this evening, and will be supporting it. As I assume, as you pointed out, which is why I didn't about to deal with a more local matter, I will be supporting it regardless of what has been discussed in my absence.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I echo that. Just on the local issues, because in local politics, I'm not in Westminster, so I can't speak on behalf of central government. So locally, you know, we definitely support this report. Is just one of the concerns I have. We've seen people living in homeless pods, where many of the Labour councillors went and took pictures outside. They have plastered the council for neglectful treatment of them. and vulnerable people at site. The 57 pods at the Kavasham itself.
Point of
road
order,
itself.
Chair. Councillor Singh is
so,
speaking on the former report, which refers to the pods.
I'm coming
We're
to
now
I'm coming
on
to my
item
point.
agenda 9,
Point of
Chair.
order. I think.
Order here.
The chair
Order
is
here. Order here.
Speak through the chair. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm coming to the point. Right. So
the item is not speaking to this particular. What you're speaking to.
Well, everyone made their political points. It wasn't.
This
it
is
is.
the point
I'm
of
coming
order.
to my point.
This is the point of order.
Okay, so
you-
we support this report.
can you
and
just-
thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Okay, super. I had Councillor Barnett Ward to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to note Councillor Singh's comments that it's not for councillors to defend or excuse the government. And I'll be remembering that if Councillor Singh is still on the council when we have a Labour government next year.
Right. Oh, it was in the report. Okay.
Councillor Emberson.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Singh is right, it's not Westminster, but I do want to respond to Councillor Goss and just say thank you. And I wasn't having a go at you for having left the room. It was just that your colleague said nothing. And often is the case. He has now spoken, to be fair. But it's often the case on this committee that these kind of reports just get waved through. And that's why I always kind of not drag out the debate, but just point out that we're talking about people. So I really appreciate your comments. And it's a shame that Councillor Singh, despite my comments, uses it to politically point score about quite an outdated article in relation to the pods, to which the council responded in the proper channels. And I just think
Point of order, Chair. It's not relevant to the report, so.
Fair dues.
I'm finished, Chair.
Thank you.
Right, can we agree the recommendations on the report? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 10. And thank you very much for presenting the report, Selina. We're not finished yet. We got one report. Please sit down. Don't be so anxious. It's only 8:15. Okay, Donna. Okay, right, good. When okay.
Thank you. I'll do just a very short introduction. So I'm Donna Pentelow, Assistant Director for Culture, here to talk to you about Reading Climate Festival 2023. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to play a very short video that was produced by Beautiful Creatures, commissioned by ourselves, University of Reading, Reader and Reading Climate Action Network. And what it does is takes us back to June this year, the festival, and collates feedback from attendees at Luke Jerram's iconic piece, Gaia, which was the centrepiece of this year's festival.
And that's really important. We have nothing else but our generation is the last hope, so we have to do something about it. We have to make people listen to us, and that's really important. We have nothing else but this blue globe, you know, this blue ball. We have nothing else but this to live off of.
that we are basically the future of this world, and we would like to do something about it.
It's hard to come to terms with actually what we are facing and to recognise it, to take action.
I know everybody on every level within my school, my family, and even the wider community of Reading, that we all care about it and we're driven to make a change. And even the smallest actions we can make still make a big difference in the long term.
Having moments like these, events like these, meeting, interacting with other people who believe the same things I do, who are really trying their hardest, it just, makes you feel better about the situation we're in.
Thank you. So yes, so the report is for committee to note the evaluation that we included as part of the festival overall, the impact that Gaia had on participation and engagement, and also the value of arts and culture and creativity in engaging a wider range of people in a range of social issues, on this occasion, climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I have Councillor Barnett-Ward.
Thank you, Chair. So it's a report on a worrying and difficult subject overall, because we're talking about the climate, but actually it's a really positive report to round out this evening, because I think this really demonstrates what we can do as a cultural organisation within the council. And the Reading Climate Action Network does fantastic work, but you can see generally we will have 1,000 really committed, engaged people engaging with the Climate Festival. And by having the ambition and the foresight to bring Gaia to Reading, that was increased 13-fold. So I'm really proud that it's the sort of ambition, this whole arrangement around the Climate Festival, that is what you get from council-run culture and council-run cultural activities. And something else that was fantastic about Gaia is it really gave the opportunity to showcase the amazing customer service that we have at the Town Hall and the museum. I have the privilege, being lead for leisure and culture, of every month I get to see the feedback that we get for our theatres, our libraries, our museums, our leisure centres, and people really value the warmth and helpful approach that they get from our staff and volunteers, and that was absolutely on display on the Gaia. I visited a few times. For one of them, we came along and a family they'd got confused about the time. I think they booked it overseas, and so the time had been different on their phone somehow, and they'd managed to miss their session, and they didn't get turned away. They were taken down to reception. They found another session they could fit them into. They ended up doing the junk instrument workshop with me and my daughter, which is what we were there for. When you went in for your session, you came out and the staff were there with water on hot days. I mean, it was really brilliant, and they go above and beyond. And I think when you go to a more commercial operation, and you wouldn't expect to get that level of service for a £2 ticket, which was all that it was for adults to go in, and it was free for people under 16. And because we have a creative and entrepreneurial leisure and culture department, it still was at no cost to the council, because it was fully funded through ticket sales, through sponsorship, and through Shared Prosperity Fund funding. So I'm really proud of our team and the work that they've done and the work that they continue to do. And I'm really glad that we've got this opportunity to showcase that, and of course the continuing work that will come from it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Adele. Councillor O'Connell.
Thank you very much. I agree with everything that Councillor Barnett-Ward said. I must admit, I sort of almost immediately wanted to flick to the legacy, because, it was such an amazing thing to bring to Reading. I'm a geography teacher, and so I find all of the world and sustainability fascinating. How on earth are you going to match it? Because it really was outstanding. I mean, I don't know if you can give us any, tips.
Yeah, no spoilers. So we, as you can imagine, we're already working on 2024. We have taken the decision to not bring something as big and as big a scale because this time last year, you know, we'd already engaged Luke Jerram at this point. So what we're doing is we're looking at what we feel we can bring that's still got an arts and culture theme around it, because we know that works really well. Is that Vic or what we talked about? We are still meeting as a partnership. You know, that we couldn't deliver that on our own as a council. That is based on a really solid foundation and working relationship and working partnership with the university, with Reader, with Arcan, and I cannot underestimate that at all. And they're great to work with. So we are building up the plans. We would like to do something big, and that will come. But those are still plans at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to thank the cultural team so much. And Councillor Barnett Ward couldn't have hit it any better. It's when all of our teams work across the council to deliver initiatives about climate change and all of that. When we're all pulling together, you can see how things really work and how together as a council we are going to make a difference as far as the climate, and that 2030, even though it's not all that far off, seems possible when you see wonderful things like this. I have to say, I watched your clip, Donna, and I really did. I teared up, and then of course I had a coughing jack, but that was done off camera. But it really was just that impressive. The lectures that went along with the Gaia presentation allowed those that really wanted to go in depth about the climate to really want to understand more, the opportunity to do so. So there was something for everyone, from just being out in the fun festival itself and just enjoying the day or engaging as they feel best, because one of the ways that we're really going to make a difference with the climate emergency is to reach those that aren't necessarily always reached. And those numbers, indeed, when they increase 13-fold, is just really impressive. We are beginning to reach those people that we really need to engage with. I personally really enjoyed, and I'd love to see how it's going to play up in the future, just about the pledges that are on pages 119 and 120. Those are all remarkable, and each one of those really can make a difference. One of my favorites, avoid fast fashion. As a former clothing designer, I live and regret every single that I ever designed. It is just really a difference. Sustainable fashion and making the right choices about clothing is really, really important. And all of those initiatives that were pledged can really just have a fascinating, wonderful, and good success. So I just really applaud you and can't thank the cultural team enough for just really reaching out and making it work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Many other takers? None. Can we move to agreeing the recommendations, please? All agreed. Thank you very much. That's item 10, which is the last item on the agenda for today. So I declare this meeting closed.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.